أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل من لساني يفقهوا قولي Selamun Aleyküm ve Rahmetullah ve Berekatuhu. Inshallah we will continue with 21st word, and we studied the first 4 aspects, and we will continue with the 5th aspect today. So this is the final aspect of the 21st word, second station. And this second station was an interpretation of the verse, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, and say, O my sustainer, I seek refuge with you from the suggestions of the evil ones. And I seek refuge with you, O my sustainer, lest they should come near me. This is the verse from Quran chapter 23 and ayahs verses 97 and 98.
So the 21st word on 287 for us, and the 5th aspect. In matters of belief, what occurs to one in the form of doubts are scruples. The unhappy man suffering from scruples sometimes confuses conceptions in his mind with imaginings. That is, he imagines a doubt that has occurred to his imagination to be a doubt that has entered his mind, and supposes that his beliefs have been damaged. Sometimes he supposes a doubt he has imagined to have harmed his belief. Sometimes he supposes a doubt he has imagined to have been confirmed by his reason. Sometimes he supposes pondering over a matter related to unbelief to be unbelief. That is, he supposes to be contrary to his belief, his exercising his ability to reflect in the form of understanding the causes of misguidance, and his ability to study and reason in impartial fashion. Then, taking fright at these suppositions, which result from the whisperings of Satan, he exclaims, Alas, my heart is corrupted and my belief spoiled. Since those states are mostly involuntary, and he cannot put them to rights through his faculty of will, he falls into despair. The cure for this wound is as follows. Just as imagining unbelief is not unbelief, neither is fancying unbelief unbelief. And just as imagining misguidance is not misguidance, so too reflecting on misguidance is not misguidance. For both imagining and fancying and supposing and reflecting are different from confirmation with the reason and submission of the heart. They are other than them. They are free to an extent. They do not listen to the faculty of will. They are not included among the obligations of religion. But affirmation and submission are not like that. They are dependent on a balance. And just as imagining, fancying, supposing, and reflecting are not affirmation or submission, so they cannot be said to be doubt or hesitation. But if they are repeated unnecessarily and become established, then a sort of real doubt may be born of them. Also, continually taking the part of the opposing side, calling it unbiased reasoning, or being fair, reaches the point that the person involuntarily favors the opposing side. His taking the part of the truth, which is incumbent on him, is destroyed. He too falls into danger. A state of mind becomes fixed in his head, whereby he becomes an officious representative of Satan or the enemy. Okay. The most important of this sort of scruple is this. The person suffering from it confuses something that is actually possible with something which is reasonably possible. That is, if he sees something which is of itself possible, he imagines it to be reasonably possible and reasonably doubtful. Whereas one of the principles of theology, kalam, is that something which is of itself possible is not opposed to certain knowledge, and does not contradict the demand of reason. For example, the Black Sea sinking into the earth at this moment is of itself possible, but we judge with certainty that the sea is in its place, and we know this without doubting it. And that possibility, which is actually possible, causes us no doubt and does not damage our certainty. And for example, of itself, it is possible that the sun will not set today, or that it will not rise tomorrow. But this possibility in no way damages our certainty that it will rise and gives rise to no doubt. Similarly, unfounded suspicions arising from the possibilities of this sort about, for example, the setting of the life of this world and rising of the life of the hereafter, which are among the truths of unbelief, cause no harm to the certainty of belief. Furthermore, the well-known rule, a possibility that does not arise from any proof or evidence is of no importance, is one of the established principles of both the sciences of the principles of religion and the principles of jurisprudence. I'm just finishing up. If you say, what is the wisdom and purpose in scruples being visited on us, which are thus harmful and an affliction for believers? The answer, on condition they do not lead to excess or overwhelm a person, especially scruples are the cause of vigilance, lead to seeking the best way, and give rise to seriousness. They banish indifference and repulse carelessness. Therefore, in this realm of examination and arena of competition, the absolutely wise one put them in the hand of Satan as a whip of encouragement for us. He strikes it at our heads. If it hurts excessively, one must complain to the all-wise and compassionate one and say, I seek refuge with God from Satan the accursed. And that's the end of the fifth aspect.
Would you like to continue with?
I have a few comments. I guess one thing is I'm not familiar with the word scruples at all. I don't understand what I guess it's a subcategory of doubts.
Westwester, which is
Whispers.
Whispers. Okay, Whispers.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very interesting passage, I feel. I think in the first half especially, the text is really outlining the psychology of a human being and how sometimes entertaining certain thoughts or suppositions leads one to think that they hold those thoughts and suppositions as convictions. This is certainly applicable to myself, I feel. And that reasoning, entertaining or reflecting over certain questions or doubts and thinking that they represent one's state of mind, I guess, is a fallacy, or I don't know what you would call it exactly, but a misguided sort of reasoning. And I think the second half of the passage is outlining certain principles of, what is conceivable, what is possible, and how that need not damage what we still take to be certain facts or ways of going about. But I guess we can go paragraph by paragraph.
I just remembered that you haven't been with us for several weeks, and we were talking about you not being here. I just remembered, yes.
I was here in spirit.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
That's an excuse, but I guess because the topic is so applicable, I had an intuition to not be here, avoidance.
Okay, let's start, inshallah, then, from the beginning. Any comments, any ideas?
So I would like to ask a question about the first sentence. So it says, in matters of belief, what occurs to one in the form of doubts are scruples. So, the rest of the paragraph is going to make a distinction between the two. But what is a doubt, to clarify for ourselves, and what appears to be a doubt. Because apparently it looks like having a doubt is not good. Or is it?
Can you clarify that question?
So, author in here is saying that if you feel like you are having some sort of a doubt, this is different than having an actual doubt. So if you are having, let's say, this whispers, which are not necessarily doubt, you shouldn't be worried. But if you are having serious doubts, this is another issue. So as if he is categorizing doubt as something established, and you agree upon something, you give into it, sort of. But a whisper or a waswasa in this sense is not really a doubt. So he's differentiating the two. To clarify, what is a doubt then?
So you are making that based on the first sentence?
The first sentence and the paragraph that comes afterwards. But he is establishing it in the first sentence by saying that a sort of waswasa, a whisper is, it occurs in the form of doubt. So in reality, it's not a doubt, but it appears to you as if it's a doubt. So he's making a distinction between doubt and fantasizing as if it's a doubt, sort of.
Can the distinction be said to be like thinking about a doubt versus being in a state of doubt?
I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also it seems like he's saying that if you constantly think about having that doubt, it eventually leads or transitions into that state of doubt as well. Right?
Because I remember in the previous weeks, a few weeks ago, we said having doubts is not bad. So we can question this again. I mean, in what sense it's not bad and when it's going to be bad, as if, because within the context of this paragraph, if I repeat a whisper too much, he said, it can turn into a doubt, as if this is something that I shouldn't be really willing to jump into. So for that reason, we should locate what does it mean to entertain an idea, what does it mean to fall into doubt of that idea, and then what does it mean to, let's say, reject an idea. These are all, I mean, in the example of, let's say, hereafter, is there going to be hereafter? So what would be a whisper or scruple about, well, what if there is no hereafter? What would be a doubt about, well, I can never know if there's going to be a hereafter or not. It cannot be known, whatever. What would be a doubt in this sense? And what would be a denial of hereafter? I guess these are all separate levels of conviction. And the author is separating it in here. And in my journey to belief, where shall I be okay, sort of? Or what sort of a action shall I take in whenever I'm in one of those three states? Is it the same reaction that I'm going to show? Or what am I supposed to do in each of these three states? Just a question to keep in mind. I mean, we can keep discussing the first paragraph. But
No, let's continue. Is there any reactions?
Sorry. I guess I understood the question, but I am not sure how, at least in the first paragraph, how he makes a distinction between the doubt and scruples.
He's not, I guess, making a distinction between scruples and doubts. He's just saying things that seems like a doubt, they are indeed scruples, so they are not doubts.
That's what Yusuf said, that what author does in the first paragraph.
I guess he meant like a doubt, like an imaginary doubt versus real doubt. That's the distinction.
Because let's say if it is a man appearing to you in the form of a woman, let's say. So you know that this is a man, but he put some sort of a makeup or whatever, then he appears to you as a woman. Just to make it more tangible. So in the first sentence, he is saying that there's a scruple, but it appears to you as if it's a doubt. It's not really a doubt. But just the formation of the first sentence, right? In reality, you wouldn't call it a doubt. A doubt is something else. A scruple is something else, a doubt is something else. And even beyond these two, denial is something totally different.
And I guess the distinction becomes going to be in the next paragraph, not the first paragraph. But when he says, and just as imagining, fancying, supposing, and reflecting are not affirmation or submission, so they cannot be said to be doubt or hesitation. If they are repeated unnecessarily and become established, then a sort of real doubt may be born of them. So just to summarize what I understand and what I understood and linking to his question, the author says sometimes people get worried because they have some doubts about their beliefs. But he says, in reality, they just imagining some doubts, maybe entertaining some doubts, but they don't have doubts in their belief. So it's not a real doubt, he says. Then in the next paragraph, he says, if you repeat this, and if they become established, then they may become a real doubt. That's what I understand, like as at the surface value. And I guess Yusuf is saying that he's asking what should we understand from imaginary doubt and real doubt. And you may, of course, say that this is not the way I understood, and share with us what you understood.
No, I didn't understand anything yet. So.
Oh, okay. Any reactions to this question? Maybe disagreeing, agreeing, where at least up from.
So I was trying to see like how I can have scruples. I guess one is like you think, what if Muhammad was not a prophet? What if Islam is a lie? What if the Quran is not from God? What if this? Like you start with these what if questions. You have no like evidence to actually back it up. You just go with these what ifs and you just realize my whole life's a lie or something. And you think that this is like a great lie and it's like so bad, but then you realize there's no evidence supporting it and it's just the whispering and it's not a doubt. A doubt needs some evidence or something to back it up. I don't know, maybe you read a verse and you don't understand it, you don't like it. Maybe that's a doubt because you actually have something to go off. A what if statement is just out of thin air, I guess.
Any other comments?
I guess the moment you take a certain thought seriously, like you make it serious almost. And I guess that's kind of funny in a sense. I mean, it's like you're worrying about whether a certain thought will affect you, but it's that worrying itself that might make it something more legitimate or substantive.
There was a very funny birthday song. And
Happy birthday to you, sir.
something like that. So, and it's a YouTube clip. So there's this toy bear, teddy bear, singing this birthday song, and the content is like this: "Happy birthday to you, but how do you know that today's your birthday? Maybe you're a stolen child." Like this sort of dark humor. So, and I guess pretty much every child has this throughout his life. Well, are they really my parents? Or they find me in front of the mosque, or they adopted me? I mean, these sort of things. So no substantial evidence or anything like that. But like, I guess at some point of life, when your mother shouts at you and your naughty elder brother comes and says that, you see, they found you in front of the house, you're an adopted child. So, I mean, initially this is a what if sort of a thing. But, I mean, of course, this is an example. But a child can grow this question, and the question might say that, well, what if? And then it says, yeah, they are surely, and then I'm not really sure if they're my parents. So there is a difference of severeness, if you like, from just the whispering of your elder brother or sister saying that, well, what if you're not? Then to a degree, losing your trust relation with your parents, let's say, because they're coming and saying you that I'm your parent, and then you say that, well, I never know, I was not there. My consciousness was not there. How am I going to prove? And what if the birth certificate is just made up? I mean, you can come up with anything for that. So unless and until I see myself being delivered from you, I will not believe. So I mean, this sort of reasoning would never end. And repeating this too much on myself, I can convince myself that there is no way I can prove that. Therefore, I don't know, I will never trust you, sort of. So I guess the difference between what if sort of a thing in that example is just a funny question. But if I repeat it too much and start borrowing lack of evidence or dismissing all evidences, saying that it's not strong enough for me, I can come to a conclusion that, well, there is no evidence, then why shall I say that you're my parents? So, and you can apply this to belief in afterlife, belief in God, or anything in that sense.
So the difference between the doubt and the scruples, the doubt is in the heart and the scruples in the imagination?
Somewhere else, yeah. I mean, it's not confirmed. It's just your elder brother throwing the question in that example. It's a scruple. You haven't adopted the idea for yourself yet. Still, you have this conviction that your parents are your parents. But if it grows so much on me to the extent that I dismiss all my convictions, this is what I understand from it sinking into my heart. It becomes a doubt for me. It's a true doubt. It's not my brother jokes anymore.
I mean, isn't the nature of a doubt the fact that there isn't any sort of confirmation in it, right? Like, there affirmatively or negatively. Because if there was negatively, then you wouldn't have the doubt. And if it was affirmatively, then that would just be disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
So what I mean, I guess saying that a doubt isn't a doubt until you confirm it. I don't know if that.
So
maybe I just.
Maybe that's why he gives the example of Black Sea sinking. Mm-hmm. For you are already convinced right now that Black Sea is there. So you are in the positive side, but you might be like an agnostic of existence of Black Sea. This would truly be a doubt, saying that, well, if I see is Black Sea in there, if you are saying that, well, I don't know, I can never know, as if now I am impartial for the existence of Black Sea. But you would say, well, there's no reason for it to disappear. I saw Black Sea in there, and it requires a lot of things for the Black Sea to just evaporate or something. So it doesn't make sense to be impartial in this case, for instance. If somebody, just your elder brother, comes and says that, you know what, they say Black Sea evaporated, I would call this as a whisper, a scruple. But if, let's say, my friend from there comes with some sort of, I don't know, extreme version of relativistic worldview and tells me that, well, you never know, even if you put your finger into the sea, are you sure that this is the sea? I mean, some sort of extra philosophical, skeptical perspective, then you would say, yeah, unless and until I immerse my body totally inside the Black Sea, I wouldn't believe in the existence of the Black Sea, sort of. If I end up in that state, then now I am truly doubting the existence of the Black Sea. I'm not denying its existence, but I am saying that I don't know. I can never know. It's unknowable. But what makes me do that? No evidence. For its existence, initially I had some sort of an evidence. I saw it, let's say, in the first place. But for its lack of existence or for it to evaporate, I don't have any evidence for that. But then the Satan or elder brother will come and say that, well, they say, third person, they say it evaporated. I should, in this case, say, okay, then show me an evidence for that. Because theoretically, something being possible doesn't mean that it's actually possible. This is the distinction that he is making. So my brother can come and say that, well, it's possible that your parents adopted you. Well, for sure it's possible, but is there any evidence for that? Unless and until I am shown that evidence, it should stay as a scruple for me, not as a doubt for me.
So for something to be doubt for you, like you have to, it is more like referring to a state of your maybe consciousness or like your heart, and it more like refers to a stand, as opposed to the scruples. It is just an possibility of something, some sort of idea. But with the scruples, you haven't used your own free will to take the stand in terms of like very positive or negative, like to make that decision about it. But in order for something to be called doubt, then you receive the scruples that comes making the question in the form of like doubt or in the form of a question. Then you process it, and based on that, you take a stand, and that stand may be negative, and that's what the doubt is.
Or indifferent. And you are losing your conviction based on this suggestion.
And sometimes you may do that like in the name of being impartial to it, but actually it's not being impartial. It is like actually taking a side, taking a stand.
Suhail, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say just something similar to that, in that a doubt concerns something that's possible, as he says, like the sun not rising or the sea sinking. Is it reasonably possible? Well, if you're talking about a doubt that concerns the physical nature of the world, like the sun not rising or the Black Sea sinking, if you see it that it's rising or the sea is not sinking, then the doubt has no actual reality. So in that regard, you have to confirm, or in other words, exercise your choice. If you just say it's actually possible, but then confuse what's actually possible with what is, that's imaginary. That's just a scruple that doesn't mean anything. Same thing for belief. If you imagine denial, that's nothing. You actually have to confirm denial. But the difference between belief matters and physical empirical matters is that you can't confirm the denial of belief. That's not possible. So that's why denial is not actually possible in a sense. And therefore it's not reasonably possible either. You can't confirm denial once you exercise your free will. There's no way. It contradicts self-contradictory. So in that sense, any imagination of denial is in a sense a scruple. It doesn't, because if it weren't, then you could say then denial is real, in the sense that it has some real actuality. Not only is it actually possible, then you could reason denial to be true, but you can't, because it's logically, it's incoherent. So imagining denial is essentially a satanic whispering. All you have to do is exercise your choice or will to confirm the truth. That's it. Anything otherwise is just false imagination. It has no reality. Or the Quran always uses like dhanun, like speculation. There's no reality to it. So it's not reasonably possible at all. And therefore, nor is it actually possible either. That's the distinction I would personally make between, empirical things out there in the world and belief.
Jazakallah khair. There is a comment from Fariha and then from Yusuf. I guess he sent us this funny video, as if it was not enough for him to commit a crime. Now he wants us. So Fariha says, so denial is non-existent, in other words. Denial is non-existent, in other words. So going back to Yusuf's question, he was kind of implying that the doubts are not good. So I guess this is a topic of a heated discussion. So let's open this. So Yusuf says real doubts are not good. Any reactions, any comments on that? And then we can ask Yusuf again to support
clarify his stand.
clarify his stance. Suhail, please go ahead if you want to disagree with Yusuf.
To me, the question is invalid. There's no such thing as a real doubt. That's the whole point of what Nursi's saying, in my opinion. They have no reality. It's nothing. It doesn't. There's no. You can say whatever you want to say. That's nothing. It doesn't have any sort of reality to this. To whatever you're saying. They're just imaginations. That's why he says you can't corrupt belief with what you imagine things to be, because it's not actually possible. Therefore, you can't make it reasonably possible either. A doubt is purely satanic whispering. It's just that, generally don't understand what the nature of belief is because it concerns existence. You can't confirm non-existence, so how can you have a real doubt? All we do is just cover up the truth. When you cover up the truth, in a sense, the way I would say it is, the truth is there. You can't show me the absence of truth. When you cover it up, you are taking a position towards it by covering it up. How can you have a doubt then? Because you're the one covering up the truth. That's why denial belongs to you. That's why evil belongs to you. And when you acknowledge the truth, you are just utilizing will to not cover up the truth. That's it. You can't have any real doubt. It's not possible. All we confuse, as Norshi says, these are just imaginations, just whisperings. There's no such thing. That's why, I think it's been brought up in the past. People who question, to me, they know what the truth is. Like these people who are like skeptics. They know what the truth is. What they're doing is they don't want to acknowledge it. So they just try to cover it up with their questions. There's no real doubt there.
That was very interesting. Asim, please go ahead.
Yeah, so, Suhail said the question was invalid, but, we as in human beings, everybody goes through certain kind of questioning and doubts. So let me try to make a distinction. For example, as the way I understood, and you guys can correct me. So something that is an external kind of idea, something that is not real, or it's like the imagination, that is being regarded as a scruple. And then if I really take it within me that, this is a kind of a possibility, and I, really let it affect me within my being, then that becomes a doubt. And that's exactly where the satanic attack or that external whispering is hitting me right in my being. Otherwise, that thing has no reality, in fact, but because it's something that is just made up, it's imagination, it's external. But when I let it affect me, then it becomes a doubt. So that's why doubt is not good for a human being.
Jazakallah khair. Osman, you were saying something. Do you want to say something? Or?
No, there was a disagreement here. Like that's I was saying that.
Why do you agree?
She was sorry.
Abdurrahman, go ahead,
was
please.
saying something.
But why do you agree? Instead of telling people.
No, so like jokes aside.
I'm not joking, but okay.
Let's go with your
disagreement.
Comments. Oh no, just your comments. Whatever.
I mean, just what Suhail said, I can't relate at all. Like doubts not existing and you're just covering up. I think doubts definitely exist for me, and that's all that matters. They do exist. Like I do have them, and it's not just I know the truth. I'm just being egotistical or something. And they exist. That's just the only part I disagree with. I see.
I think what I understood from Suhail's comment, not that like the doubt itself doesn't exist, but it doesn't refer to any kind of reality. So there is no truth in it at all. Since there is no truth in it, it kind of represents the non-existence of the truth. Like it is the non-existence of the truth. That's why it doesn't exist. I think that's what we refers to, or that's how I understood.
I understood something similar. Yeah.
And I guess the same argument applies for unbelief as well. Like it doesn't have any truth because it's a denial of existence. Unbelief is, but a person might be in an active state of unbelief. saying that I'm truly denying existence of things. So I guess in that sense, in terms of nature of unbelief, yes, it is based on non-existence, but I might be in that state of existing claim of non-existence. So this is what Abdurrahman was saying. I am feeling the existence of doubts in me. It does exist in me. I might be living the state of unbelief. It is an existing state that I am in. But yes, does it have any reality, any value in it? Or am I just deluding myself? Yes, I mean, in itself, it's a delusion. So referring back to a famous book, Delusion of Unbelief. So I am putting myself in the state of delusive non-existence.
Just before the comments, Suhail says that's what I'm saying, it's contradictory within itself. I guess this is a comment after what Osman said. And Fariha says doubts exist, but do not have a reality pertaining to my existence. Doubts exist, but do not have a reality pertaining to my existence. I can give it color as being. I can give it color as being. And then Suhail points us a verse from Quran. Since it's from Quran, I will read it. It's something serious. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The truth is from your Lord, so do not be among the doubters. The truth is from your Lord, so do not be among the doubters. This is, I guess, Ali Imran, yes, the chapter Ali Imran and verses 60. The truth is from your Lord, so don't be among the doubters. So I guess, like without being lost in different definitions, Feria says something, sorry. Feria says, nurse says somewhere, Nursi, I guess, do not give non-being color of being. Oh, do not give non-being color of being. Okay, like do not try to show non-being as if it's a being. So what I was saying, like without being lost in different definitions of the doubts and denial, I guess going back to question, going back to text. So Nursi says, sometimes you feel like you're doubting your belief, but don't worry, it's not a real doubt. Real doubt is bad. This is how Yusuf at least summarizes it. The real doubt is bad, but what you have is not a real doubt, so you shouldn't be worried. Like this is the first part, right? And why do you think the doubt is bad?
So maybe I should clarify that point. If, let's say, I am in that doubt state, means relative, again, is it good or bad? Relative to denial, being in a doubt puts me in a position to question. So in that sense, relative to that, I am a questioner, so it is good, relative to unbelief. And it's even good relative to ignoring. But I'm not questioning at all. I saw how my forefathers used to do, so I'm doing it the same way. So I am indifferent in this case, although from outside I might be appearing to, quote unquote, believe in the right religion, but I am indifferent. So relative to that, being doubtful is again something good because at least I am on the track to question. But in here, author is making a distinction saying that being in the state of doubt means you lost conviction. So losing conviction is relative to unbelief or relative to having some sort of a conviction. It is definitely a bad state. Because if I'm convinced that my parents are my parents, and then based on no evidence, I am, if you like, falling to a level of, well, I can never know, I really doubt sort of a stage, then definitely this is stepping back for no reason. I mean, the thing that made me fall from my conviction to lack of conviction were not worthy to really make me fall. But I thought that they can make me fall from here to there. Let's say this can happen for belief in the existence of the creator. Somebody can come up and by just asking questions which doesn't prove anything, but might make you lose your conviction, although it is irrelevant. Like the question of maybe the Black Sea has evaporated. I mean, asking such a question should or could in no way make me lose my conviction that the Black Sea is in there. But so if getting such a question makes me fall to that state, definitely being in that state is useless and bad. So it's a relative statement in this sense. Otherwise, if we are comparing it to, let's say, an imitative version of faith, and then being in a doubt state, I didn't really fall from somewhere to somewhere. I just maybe even raised to the acknowledging that, well, the thing that I used to think that I have was not really there. I have never seen the Black Sea, but I thought that there was something as Black Sea, and now somebody is bringing this to my attention. So being in the state of doubt in this sense is as if some sort of a self-consciousness. Well, I didn't know it in the first place anyways. But if it is the other way around, I have swam in the Black Sea, I fished in there, whatever, I have some sort of a conviction. And losing this conviction for no valid reason is definitely falling down.
Right. So there's a comment from Conley. Suhail, I will give you the mic. Just please let me read the comment and maybe add a few thoughts. Conley says, I think this is really important. To say that doubts have no reality is to say that your first assumption, belief about a thing is always right.
Can you read that?
To say that doubts have no reality, so doubts are not real, is just to say that your first assumption or belief about a thing is always right. It's like, I guess what he says, Conley, you can, by the way, to jump in and correct me. He's saying that to say that, to claim that, I guess he disagreed that the doubts do not exist. To claim that doubts have no reality is just accepting whatever you already believe and not questioning it.
It's a dogma.
Yes, exactly. Having a dogma. So I guess his point is doubts exist and they have a utility to take you a better truth, or maybe to lead you new truths that you were not aware of before, to expand your knowledge, to expand your understanding, or all these quote-unquote good things. This is what I understand from the comment. And like this kind of things we hear a lot. Sometimes we also, like I'm talking personally, sometimes I also enjoy, like you believe something, you go after something, and the things that visits your mind leads you something else, and so most of the time something better. So I have to make the balance. I have to utilize the doubts in a right way, or should we utilize them in any way? I guess that's the question. And Suhail, please go ahead.
No, I still have a fundamental issue because to me, at least how I understand the discussion, getting hung up on words. To first start with Norsi's example about the Black Sea and the sun. So they're, in a sense, empirical matters. They concern physical things. But I do like what the example he uses, because if I say the sun, I know the sun, or I define the sun to be a thing that rises in the east and sets in the west. That's my definition of the sun. It's a sort of absolute definition. Now, is it actually possible that the sun could rise from the west tomorrow? Yeah, it's actually possible. Is it within reason? Can you reason its possibility? No, because when you say the statement, the sun is going to rise from the west tomorrow, you actually have to demonstrate that in contradiction to your definition of the sun rising from the east. Like, you can't, in that sense, to say that the Black Sea sunk, yeah, you can imagine it, but you actually have to demonstrate it. That's what it means to be reasonably possible. You can't, if you can't demonstrate it, then what are you talking about? Yeah, you can imagine whatever you want to imagine. It doesn't mean anything. Likewise, for belief, you can't. So my issue is, what is a doubt? A doubt to me is literally you, in a sense, you can't be neutral about something. You always take a position, in a sense. You are still exercising your will, free will, whether you are aware of it or not. When I walk into a room and the light is at 25% brightness, why do I call it that the room is dark? Why don't I call it the room is 25% lit? But when the room is, let's say, 90% lit, I call, the room is lit, the room is bright. It's because my perception doesn't match up with my expectation. So if I, in a sense, have some imagination, and I give that imagination reality, it doesn't matter what you call it, doubt, scruple, doesn't matter to me. But if you give that imagination reality, you, in a sense, are covering up or turning down the light. And then you think that's real. That's no reality. All you did was you just covered up the truth. That's why the verse, to me, the truth, al-haq, like when you're talking about existential truth, how can you be in doubt? It's obvious. It's mubin, as the Quran says. The truth is obvious. It's just that what we call 25% light, we call that darkness. Because, as I see it, our perception of reality is warped by sort of secular understanding that you can have a doubt about the world and it actually has a reality. That, to me, is what skepticism entails. Like, you go to these modern education, they essentially give a reality to your skepticism, but it has no reality. So that's how I understand it. But if you just uncover the veil over the truth, it becomes like 100% light in that sense. So then you wouldn't call it a doubt then. So to me, you can't have two coexistent things. But doubt, in a sense, as in covering up the truth, you do need that. You do need opposites. You do need a spectrum. Otherwise, I wouldn't know anything. I do need the quote unquote absence of light to a degree to know what light is. I need the absence of the perfection of certainty to know that what certainty is, that I can be certain of the truth in that regard. Yes, I do need that. But me covering things up or me just imagining things to be real isn't real. There's nothing there. Because I can't, in the sense of existential truth, you imagining it as an actual possibility it has no possibility to begin with if you understood what you were thinking about. Therefore, it's not reasonably possible. You can't actually demonstrate denial. There's nothing there. It's just that you're very, very, very uncertain to the point that, you think your imagination has a reality. That's why, to me, evil belongs to you. One more thing I would say is you still have to, the point is, in this situation, you always have to exercise your free will. You can't say I don't know, because at any point you're still taking a position. There's will already employed there. No one can say then you can't have judgment. No one can say that, I had doubts and I didn't know, and so I can't be held accountable. No, your free will in terms of having a doubt and giving it reality was an exercise of your free will. You did that yourself. You can't say you didn't do anything. Wanted to say one thing. Yeah. So I just wanted to go back to the paragraph because to me, at least how I understand it, what Nursi says, he says to the paragraph on at least online page 285 in the middle of the page, just as imagining unbelief is not unbelief, neither is fancying unbelief. Or in other words, they're not real. Just as imagining misguidance is not misguidance, so too reflecting on misguidance is not misguidance, because there's no reality to them. For both imagining and fancying and supposing and reflecting are different from confirmation with the reason and submission of the heart. They are other than them. Or in other words, you have to exercise choice here. Because the moment you exercise choice and use the intellect and the heart to confirm something, you can't confirm misguidance or denial or unbelief. It's not possible to do so. They are free to an extent. They do not listen to the faculty of will, as he says. Because if you actually exercise intellect and the heart, then there's nothing to confirm other than the truth. They are not included among the obligations of religion. You're not obliged to deny because it's not real. But affirmation and submission are not like that. They are dependent on balance. But affirmation and submission are not like that. They are dependent on a balance. And just as imagining, fancying, and supposing and reflecting are not affirmation or submission, so they cannot be said to be a doubt or hesitation. So he's saying you're not affirming anything there. So it's not, in a sense, a doubt or hesitation, because you can't affirm those or confirm them. But if they are repeated, and to me this is really important, but if they are repeated unnecessarily and become established, then a sort of real doubt may be born of them. Or in other words, if you think your imagination has some validity to it or some truth in there, then in a sense that becomes the truth for you, even though it has no validity whatsoever. You can, I guess, what you can call them is, if you want to call it, he calls it a sort of real doubt, because there's not, like, it's not even real anyway to begin with, but it's because it's like imagining darkness to be real. Every time you keep saying it, like in my decades of education, every time I keep hearing, oh, it's dark outside, it becomes ingrained in my head from dogma and false language that darkness has a real and existential reality. There's no such thing, but I think it does. So now I think there's something called light and there's something called darkness, but they're fundamentally not real. So it's because my perception of reality has been warped. Also, continuously taking the part of the opposing side, calling it unbiased reasoning or being fair, reaches the point that the person involuntarily favors the opposing side. Exactly, that's what I was saying. If you just become skeptical or imagine for imagination's sake, and then you try to reason with it, which is not possible. You can't reason non-existence. The more you do it, the more you think it has a reality. So you actually take a favorable side to it. You then think, oh, maybe it is actually possible for denial to be true. And if it's actually possible, maybe I can reason with it and confirm it to be true. Because now your imagination, you put some reality onto your imagination. To me, that's evil. That's just covering up light, covering up the truth, to the point that you think darkness actually has a real fundamental existential reality. His taking the part of the truth which is incumbent on them is destroyed, on him is destroyed. He too falls into danger. A state of mind becomes fixed in his head, whereby he becomes an officious representative of Satan or the enemy. You become the representative of non-existence or Satan. That's what happens.
Jazakallah khair. I was planning to say a few things, but I see some confused faces here. So I would go with comments from people. This is, I guess, an interesting topic. It's an important topic. So any comments, any?
It's a very on a like very high level. What I understand from the as a whole from the text, it may not be directly saying this, but like, at least to me, that's what the implications are. The text refers to two things, like one, exercising your like free will, and also the intention. With the scruples, just to make like everything like or clarification, there are like these like suggestions coming to you, and it is out of your control, and they will be always there. But what you can do is like you can exercise your free will and take them as real and go with it. And especially like there is also like the intention part of it. If one is not or doesn't have the intention to, or is not in search of the truth, or doesn't have the intention to search the truth or the reality, then you can be very well take this stand that saying that, you know, I experienced these suggestions coming from wherever that they are real. I'm just going to be impartial to them and see like if there is anything, like take that stand and just go with it. Like if you once you take that stand, you already like fall into the trap that you can really easily get out of it. And there is, as far as I understand, there is no really intention of searching the reality or the truth. They're just taking them as they are, and then like entertaining yourself in a way, as opposed to exercising the free will and searching for the truth, and with that stand, with that mindset, looking at those suggestions to see if there is any kind of reality they represent.
Any other comments? Mariam, would you like to? Okay. Suhail, I will give you the mic. Just a second. I have some thoughts before that. I guess like a text is, let's say, a dangerous text, because it can be taken different ways. Like as calmly, sorry?
Nursi is a dangerous guy. He always writes down.
Yes, Nursi is a dangerous guy. As Conley is pointing out, somebody may take this text, for instance, to say that, you know, you shouldn't question your beliefs, you shouldn't question your ideas, you shouldn't question your truths. Just stay with them if you are happy. Doubts are, I'm just using the doubts in a loose sense, not the way, let's say, Yusuf or Suhail defined. Doubts are bad, so you should stay away them. If you have questions, just try to bury them. Living with your truth is good. But it can be at least extended by careless minds, let's say, to this direction, to the text. On the other hand, the same topic can be taken, especially the last part, maybe the answer part, taken as, maybe not this text can be taken, but this topic can be taken to another direction in which you see, you know, being a doubtful state is good, so you have to be open in the absolute sense. You have to be impartial, or you shouldn't have any conviction. So I guess this is really a dangerous topic, dangerous text, not in the sense that it shouldn't be studied, of course, but it should be studied, I guess, carefully. So my two sense of thoughts is, like in the answer part, the last paragraph, Nursi says that when he's answering why we have these scruples then, right? That was the question. And he says, on the condition they do not lead to excess or overwhelm or overwhelm a person, essentially scruples are the cause of vigilance, lead to seeking the best way, give rise to seriousness. They banish indifference and repulse carelessness. I guess this part is really important, at least like to me, that Nursi is suggesting actually like behind all these discussions about the wounds of heart is that you have to be serious with your journey. As Osman also is saying, that you have to seek the truth, like actively seeking, using your free will, as Sohail was saying as well. You have to be serious. There is no room for, what is the opposite of serious? Laziness, let's say, or...
Joking around.
Not joking around. Not taking things lightly. There is no space in journey of seeking the truth, or let's say seeking the satisfaction. There is no space for that. You have to be serious. And you have to be seeking the best way, constantly seeking. You shouldn't let anything, even your own ideas, to prevent you from seeking the best way. And then you have to be vigilant. So I guess under these assumptions of the Nursi, under these premises that you have to be serious, you have to be seeking the truth all the time, you have to be vigilant. You might be wrong, right? You have to find the truth. So possibility of being wrong is always there. But at the same time, he says being indifferent or careless is not an excuse. It's not something you should be. You shouldn't be, or you shouldn't be trying to, at least pretending that you are indifferent. Because the matters that you're studying here are the things that you cannot be indifferent. You cannot say that, I don't care about death. I don't care about, what will happen when I die. I don't care about what happens now. I don't care about, what happens to my children, to my wife, to my husband. I don't care about what happens to my beloved one. This is being inhuman. You cannot be indifferent. So going back to the paragraph Suhail was reading, there is no such thing as being impartial in such matters. Even when you try to be impartial, you're just being supporting an idea which opposes your current conviction, kind of. So, yeah, I guess we should take the text under with these premises. So obviously, Musi is not suggesting that you shouldn't question anything. You shouldn't seek for the truth. He's just saying the opposite, and clearly he's saying that. And what I understand from the doubts he's opposing here is that being in a state which you're not seeking for conviction. Like you're not trying to be convinced about something. You're not trying to be finding the truth.
I would say maybe not exactly like that, because it might be the case, but another version that I know it very well by experience is that not knowing how to handle questions. You don't really know the value of, let's say, I'm going to give you an extreme example. So, for example, existentialist relativism, which is questioning even your senses, which is somewhat like, skepticism. So, do I really exist? Does this really exist? How do I know? Everything is about my perception. So, I cannot know anything beyond my perception. Therefore, I shouldn't be passing any judgment about the existence. I shouldn't be making any existential claims at all.
So being like a further from conviction.
Yeah, so simply saying that you cannot pass any judgment about existence at all, because everything pretty much like brain in the wet. You only receive things. You don't know whether, and you can never know if you are like in the matrix inside this, Batu, and you are imagining some. There's no end for this sort of reasoning. So shall I take this as a serious questioning my understanding of existence, or where am I going to start my reasoning about existence, for example? So shall I lose it because you might be truly willing to understand the existence, but you're getting caught up with this sort of a perspective which judges you. On the surface it looks reasonable, and saying that, well, how do you know if you exist, sort of a thing, or you are going to draw a line as he does. I have seen Black Sea, and it's existing for me, and unless and until you bring me an evidence against this, so I'm not going to consider your option at all. So this is more or less showing what would be a judgment, because let's say if I am untrained about my, it sounds very awkward, but perception. So what is a reasonable thing as a proof, let's say, versus what is something like hearsay? Somebody says so. So if you cannot distinguish between the two, then you can fall into a hearsay as if it's a proof. And in here, the author is making a distinction between them, saying that human mind has several layers of understanding or conviction, and don't mix them with each other. And in this age, we are very likely to mix them with each other because of the ways of being addressed from all different angles with seemingly reasonable things to accept. The author is saying that no, one is conviction, the other one is imagination. Don't mix the two. But we can and we do mix the two. So this is why he is differentiating what is more reliable, what is less reliable. They are not equal, although they might seem like coming shoulder to shoulder. Let's say a statement such as, do you really exist, or how do you know that world exists, sort of a thing, versus, I'm going to eat food, for example. Do I exist? Do food exist? So I never question it in that sense when it comes to my practical life. But when it comes to, let's say, when I start reasoning, if I'm getting into the way that, it's all about, I don't know, maybe I really don't exist, and using it in there, so I'm losing something. And the author in here is, to me, training levels of understanding in mind. And this is an important training. So was I too cryptic?
No. I'm just trying to understand, so when I say that author is defining doubt as being away from conviction and not seeking for the conviction, how it differs from what you said, that's what I'm trying to understand.
So the way I understood it was being in such a way as author is describing in here is not voluntarily trying to escape from finding the truth. This is not what it is. So what he is warning against in here is a human possibly seeking truth, but not able to distinguish what is a reliable question versus what is just a scruple.
But this is the part when he talks about imaginary doubts. Mm-hmm. When he talks about the real doubts, he's saying that the people do this voluntarily.
Yes, now you are in a state which you are consciously making a choice.
That's what I was referring. Yes, but okay, I agree with you. What you said. Okay, just for clarification. So, but let's say start from the beginning. I'm asking the question why he's studying this, right? So why he's saying that don't worry, what you have is not doubt, but it's just the imagination of the doubt, or it's just a scruple. Mm-hmm. To me, he's trying to say that what you have as, being, having a conviction is so valuable. is so precious that you don't want to lose this state. That again, I have to be careful with this. Like when I say being convinced with something is valuable, I'm not suggesting that you should just stick to your truths and not lose them. I'm just talking about the state. Like the truths can change. I can be convinced with something now, and then I can convince with something else, something better. But the state of being convinced, or maybe we can put it that way, a state in which I can make sense of things. I can see a purpose, I can see a meaning. This is what I mean with the conviction. This state is a valuable state. Again, these meanings, the purposes can change. I might be wrong with my current meaning, but I want to be in such a state all the time. If my truth is changed, I want another truth, a better truth. I don't want to be in a state in which I don't have any truth. I don't like this. So this state of being convinced about something is priceless. It's so valuable. This is what I'm after. And the author says there are sometimes these questions comes to your mind. So don't worry, they're not taking you away from this conviction. As he summarized at the very end, they will actually there, the scruples there, to take you even a better truth. So scruples are not to shake your convictions. They will shake your truths, possibly, because you will be seeking for a better one, but they're not there to give you doubt. They are there to take you a better place. So this is how I understand from the Nursi's text, like how it defines the doubt, real doubt, not imaginary one, or real skepticism, let's say, as being just, not caring about some things, being not serious, not seeking for the truth. This is how I understand from what he says when he says doubt. Not seeking for truth, not being serious, not taking account the evidence that you have. Because all these things, all the evidence you see, is taking you somewhere. You should follow them. You should follow all these messengers around you. But you're just saying, no, who cares? I cannot know. There are all these possibilities. So I'm just lost among all these possibilities. And Nursi says that this is not a good state. What you have, this conviction is priceless, it's very valuable. You should be seeking for conviction. You shouldn't be seeking for doubts. And the part about these blacks is, by the way, like for people with limited geography, the Black Sea is a sea. It's not a imaginary thing. It's the name of a sea. It's just north of the Turkey. So he says one of the principles of theology is that something which is of itself possible is not opposed to certain knowledge. So just possibility is not an opposing characteristic. It's not, let's say, cannot oppose to certain knowledge and does not contradict the demands of reason. So many things can be understood from that, but what I understand from here is that the value of the certain knowledge. You should be seeking for certainty. Again, it will change. The level of certainty will change. What you are certain of will change. But you should be seeking for certainty. You shouldn't be satisfied. You shouldn't be, what is the word? There's a saying for that. Like you shouldn't be settled, content. Anyway, nothing. You shouldn't be settled with uncertainty. Like you should be seeking for, at least seeking, like as a target, a certain knowledge. And all these possibilities, just because something is possible, is not as valuable as a knowledge. It cannot oppose it.
So may I ask the question then, why is author warning us for that? Let's say, because my understanding from that reading is, you have a conviction, but you suppose as if you don't have a conviction. And definitely this should be damaging me in a way. This is why he is warning me against this. So what do I lose when I have a conviction, but I suppose I don't have a conviction? What happens to me? Why is he warning me against this?
Pretending to be impartial.
Why is he warning me against the conviction?
No. So as if author is saying me that you already have some sort of a conviction, but you are being tricked as if you don't have a conviction, and this is going to make you lose something. This is why he is saying that you have a conviction. Don't worry. It's not that you don't have a conviction.
I think like this will be probably oversimplification, but first we really know ourselves. Like every time, like with every experience that we go through in life, we find out something new about ourselves that we didn't know before, right? So to me, it is the most difficult thing for a human being to know himself. And that's why I think Ayşenur was like referring to the first paragraph as a psychology, like the human psychology. So there is that aspect in the text saying that, like, listen, like there are these different aspects of yours that you shouldn't be mixing them together, putting them all on in the same pot and considering them as the same thing. That's the first thing. Let's clarify that format. There's this imagination, and there is this like sort of like conviction part about some imaginary things. So don't mix them together. That's the first. The second thing is like I think that's the reason why like I kind of agree with Suhair. So there are this also exercise of your free will about those suggestions that are coming to you. So you can either like, there are two approaches that you can take. You can either like take the stand with the mindset that like you are gonna see if there is any kind of truth in it. So they will become like, you will utilize them to reach the truth, or you will take them as a surface value, thinking that since I have that question in my mind, this is already who I am already corrupted, so I'm gonna take this as real and then deal with the suggestions accordingly. And right there, like the author is saying that you are confusing the suggestions with the doubt, but they are not the same thing. With the doubt, there is an exercise of the free will. So there are two things. One, exercising the free will at the face of the suggestions and taking a stand accordingly. And the other thing is like getting those suggestions like coming into your world like in the form of imagination. Then like if you take them as real, then they grow, and that's what like where you get defeated in a way, because at the last paragraph it says that that's not how they are supposed to be utilized. I'm not sure if I am really answering your question, but like that I'm just reiterating what I earlier, like I said earlier.
Oh, before the response, Suhail is waiting for a long time. Please, Suhail, go ahead. I'm sorry for.
Oh, that's okay. I was gonna to go along with what Osman said. You know, when people say that, you know, I'm not certain that there's any truth out there. What? Hold on. Did you even examine your statement? I'm not certain there is any truth out there. That in and of itself concerns the truth. It's like a truth statement to say that there is no truth is a statement of truth. Like you were trying to say that's a statement of truth. You're being illogical right there. So, as Osman said, you can't ignore free will. You can't be indifferent. You can't just say, I'm going to be neutral. No one can be neutral to anything. Everybody has a worldview. It's how you exercise your choice. At the moment an idea presents itself, you have to ask yourself, is it valid for me? Does it resonate with my intellect and my heart, as Nursi says? And so we should really be thinking about, as you guys all said, like, am I using what ideas or whisperings come to me or whatever they are to sort of arrive to achieve the perfection of truth? Otherwise, how else do I get there unless I'm presented alternative ideas or the complete opposite of the truth? How do I get to the perfection of truth, which is what people are, but really, if you're honest with yourself, you're really after. So that's kind of how we have to utilize, our choice, our free will to do so. And then the other thing I was going to say is that, or actually two other things. One, people also can't say they're not interested in the truth. Like, that's not possible for you to do so. So for me, like, the best example to use is death, at least as I understand it. Because for in death, people perceive it to be non-existence. So you already have a perception of what it is, some sort of imagination. If people weren't interested in the truth, then why do people, in reference to death, they try to fill their lives up with transient pleasure or try to forget about it? Because by definition, you trying to avoid death means you know what the truth is. You know, you have an interest in the truth because it concerns you now. The truth concerns you. It's not some sort of entity out there that has nothing to do with you. No, it's real for you. So everybody takes a position towards the truth. But if you flip it around, and this kind of goes, I think, to our Memorial Day Halakha discussion, but if you flip it around and say, as Osman was saying, the moment you have a feeling, oh, I don't like death. Now, does death mean non-existence? Now you have to ask yourself the question and utilize your will. Employ your will to utilize intellect and the heart. Can I confirm non-existence? It becomes obvious you can't. The truth is obvious. Death is not, in a sense, real, and when you as perceiving to be non-existence. To give a real example here, but we don't generally do that. We just say, "Oh, death. I don't like death. It seems to be non-existent. So my perception of it is giving that reality. So I'm going to do everything to avoid that reality. So I do things in my life to forget about death, to seek transient pleasure. Everybody has a relationship with the truth, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. You can't be neutral. You can't be indifferent. It's not possible.
I think, like, in other words, like, he also, like, one of the critical points to me, he defines the domain, in which domain human free will has disposal over. So you don't have disposal over, you don't have control over your imaginations, for example. But you have disposal over
reasoning.
At the end, like, what's going to take root in your heart is up to you. And, like, in what stand you are going to take, whether it's going to be for the, let's say, existence versus the non-existence, that is the choice that you are making. And that's where you are responsible for. And it's already simply saying that this is the area that you are responsible for. You are not responsible for the imagination. So do not mix them together and do not make it like a burden on yourself, because you are trying to achieve something that you are not responsible for. And where you are responsible, and he says that, like, as Sayyid was like explaining over and over again, that, like, evil is from you and you are responsible for the evil. And there he says that in the last paragraph, he says that those suggestions are there to motivate you to seek the truth, not the other way around. So you should approach it as such.
So if your scruples, or if your if the questions come to your mind, take you a state which takes you further away from the truth, and you are misusing them.
That means that like you are exercising your free will in a way that like you are responsible for it, and whatever the outcome is, yeah, you are abusing or misusing the in a way. Then like they become satanic, they don't become angelic for you, and you just when there is a light, you close your eyes, and there is darkness for you, and you are responsible for that act.
So we have a few minutes, like I guess 10 or so. The last part of the last paragraph, I will read it. Of course, if you have comments in other parts, please go ahead. I don't want to miss this part as well. Let me read the last paragraph. On the condition they do not lead to excess or overwhelm a person. Essentially, scruples are the cause of vigilance, lead to seeking the best way, and give rise to seriousness. They banish indifference and repulse carelessness. Therefore, in this realm of examination and arena of competition, the absolutely wise one, put them in the hand of Satan as a whip of encouragement. He strikes it at our heads. I guess he here refers to Satan. He strikes it at our heads. If it hurts excessively, one must complain to the all-wise and compassionate one. And say, I seek refuge with God from Satan the accursed. So I need help to understand this part.
Are we going to keep discussing this topic next week, or we are finishing this week?
It seems like we are finishing, but it depends on the crowd of us, people. Do you think we should continue discussing this part next week? We can.
There was just one part that we skipped, I guess, before coming to that last paragraph. If anybody has any
Go
comment.
ahead, please. No, go ahead.
So the end of second paragraph. Also continually taking the part of the opposing side, calling it unbiased reasoning or being fair, reaches the point that the person involuntarily favors the opposing side. He is taking the part of the truth which is incumbent on him is destroyed. He too falls into danger. A state of mind becomes fixed in his head, whereby he becomes an officious representative of Satan or the enemy. So, because this is something that we would normally consider to be something fair. Because if I am, let's say, shall I buy this car or that car? So I would say, well, try to be impartial, list the pros and cons of both sides, whichever is better, choose this one. And as if in here he is saying that under the title of this impartiality, when trying to understand the truth of something, you might start favoring the other side. And then he puts this interesting sentence which says, he's taking the part of the truth which is incumbent on him is destroyed. Why is that? Am I supposed to be as a favoring the truth? What does that mean? I am supposed to favor the truth. So this one is a little bit interesting topic in there, but if you would like to discuss.
In order for man to like claim that he exercised the free will, there needs to be options, right? Mm-hmm. At least two options. And in that paragraph where you refer to, if you say that I'm just going to be impartial, so like I'm not going to take any sides, that is already taking a side. So you are already exercising your free will. So there is no such thing for human being saying that, oh well, I am not going to really exercise my free will, and I'm going to be impartial. You use that word a lot, but existentially speaking, there is no such thing. It's just not possible for human being to be able to even make that statement. Meaning that, like, one way or another, you make a choice.
That's
And the
right.
question is, like, in which direction are you going to make that choice?
Practically speaking, I mean, in theory, what you say makes sense, but practically speaking, let's say, does God exist or God does not exist? Let's say such a question, or does hereafter exist or hereafter does not exist? Let's say Quran is coming with a claim that hereafter exists, and then some my whispers or some atheist out there coming up with proofs for non-existence of hereafter. And when I'm going to evaluate the topic, shall I start by siding to hereafter should exist? I am placing myself in that domain.
How can you relate, like, not confirm, but prove the non-existence of something?
So
So
yeah, this is what I think in here author is in general talking about, because we try to, if you like, ascend, not joining to either parties and evaluate. It doesn't make sense that the so on and so forth apparently proves or claims of, let's say, the other side, which says hereafter doesn't exist. So I'm going to consider them. And then there's this other party which says hereafter exists, and I'm going to consider them. So, and in general, this is how we do it. I mean, at least we are trying to, okay, I'm going to be free to both of you. Let's say in the time of Prophet, you were one of the people living in Mecca. Abu Jahl comes with his claims, Muhammad comes with his claims, and you are trying to understand which God you should believe, Muhammad's one God or Abu Jahl's 360 gods. So both of them are bringing you their evidences or claims, whatever. So shall you be inclining towards one of them since the beginning, or you should be saying that, well, put your whatever you have in your heads in front of me, I'm going to evaluate both, and then choose one of them. So this sort of impartiality.
let's go with the example of, like, hereafter. There is a message saying that, like, there is no such thing. This is the only life that you have. There's this another message claim that, yes, there is another type of existence that's going to come, and you are not just destined for this world. Like, there will be, like, an eternal life for it. So which message should I listen to, or, like, what will be the impartiality, right? For me, the question is, everything starts from myself, my own self. Ask myself, like, what do I look for? What do I, like, even, like, why would I even be in search of any kind of truth? And why would that even message, like, really, like, be relevant to, or should I, like, really relate myself to it in any shape and form? And when I ask the question to myself, I find myself in a position that, like, I am seeking for an eternal life. So that's already right there, taking a stand. So why should I, like, if I have such a desire in me, why should I take the side of, or the message claiming that there is no such thing? It will be contradicting with myself.
So maybe instead of a desire, would you call it, if you take your desire as an evidence, let's say, then you
Let's
will
not call
side
it
with
desire,
it.
let's call it, like, it's something that is in your nature that, like, yearns for that.
And this existence of this yearning itself can be considered as a proof, so that you take it serious. The reason that
because
I'm
then
saying
the
this
message,
is,
whatever the message that they come up with, like, then I can relate to the message right from the beginning. Otherwise, like, why would I even, like, waste my time to listen to either of them?
I mean, the reason that I'm saying this is, for example, then this question from other side would come and say that you believe in hereafter because it makes you feel good. You are just escaping from facing the reality.
That's okay. That's his interpretation.
So, but this is what I mean by, or what he means by being, I mean, human wants to be impartial. So shall I take this as a reasonable invitation to be impartial or not?
But that's,
I mean, you are right in what you are saying, but I might fall into, this is what he says when he says you must be incumbent upon truth.
but that's the thing, like, what I understand from is like that he's saying that there is no such thing that you can be impartial. So like stop making that kind of claim. Don't fool yourself. There is no such thing. Like the way that you are created, you are not possible for you to be impartial.
This has
Because, like,
implications.
Because like whenever you say like I'm going to be impartial, that is already taking a stand. So you are making a choice.
So, I mean, what you say also has implications, meaning that you cannot be impartial means you are not equal distant to your choices either. You are not really freely choosing anything. One of the outcomes of what you just
Depends
said.
what you choose.
But this is the outcome of
But
what
that would
you
be a
said.
completely different
So
discussion.
this is why I guess in here, the author is talking about something possible for me and he's warning me against it. I mean, I agree that...
If you ask me, for example, like, did you really choose your car when you bought your car? Like, within that realm, was it really you who made that decision? I would question that a lot.
Oh, there are a few comments. One from Faraz, which kind of answers my question, which is about the last paragraph. So I liked it, so I'm keeping it to the as a last one. Before that, Muhammad says the base for confirmation is the existence. The base for confirmation is the existence, so you have to base whatever you confirm to the existence, what exists. The illusion or whispering cannot be taken as an evidence for any kind of judgment. Being impartial in front of these two possibilities is baseless. Being impartial in front of these two possibilities is baseless. And there's a warning from Suhail to Osman. He says, Osman, do not give away too much from our talk. So going back to Faraz, he says, I guess one issue is when are scruples necessary and when are they unnecessary? And the last paragraph answers that for me. So when scruples are necessary and when they are not necessary. The last paragraph answers that for me. When scruples hurt, they are necessary ones, and they help me go to the refuge I know as refuge. So main utility of scruples, the way I understand from what he's saying, is leading you to the refuge, and seeking to refuge. When they do not hurt, and do not make me turn to what I know as refuge, they are not necessary. So from this necessary, I kind of understand like they are just useless. I might be wrong. In this sense, scruples are different than questions I have about things I don't understand at all. In this sense, scruples are different than questions I have about things I don't understand at all, and do not have any refuge answers for at all. So if things or if questions are not leading me to refuge or answers, if they are questions about things that I don't understand at all, they are unnecessary and they are not this necessary kind of support.
Sorry, sorry, Birkan. Just to avoid the confusion, if there are questions, then they are not unnecessary. They are just not the scruples that Nursi is talking about here, I feel. When there are questions about things I don't understand and don't have any prior understanding or evidence, which therefore, and some notion of some refuge, if I don't have that, then these are just questions and they are necessary and very good, and I should try to find their answers. And they, so that's, if I don't understand something already and I have questions about it, just to clarify, I'm for myself trying to clarify that I guess Nursi doesn't include those kinds of things under the heading of scruples. what he's, I think, specifying scruples is because of how he says when they hurt, hurt. So scruples hurting is different from the kind of confusion one has when one doesn't know something. So I'm just trying to, those are two different things. Sometimes maybe I think of doubts as something that, I don't understand this fully. So I have doubts about, in the sense that I don't understand it. And there's other kind of doubts which are scruples. And in that, so I guess what I'm getting from him is that the necessary ones are with those about which I need to do something. And the others that I need not take too seriously. I can just let them pass. I don't need to dwell on them. And the difference is, I feel that the scruples that hurt, they hurt because they are pulling me away from some already understood, known answer, refuge, something. That's why they hurt. And so when they hurt, then they are necessary in this language that he's using. In an earlier paragraph somewhere he says it's unnecessary. So I was always thinking, so how do I decide what is unnecessary and what is necessary? So when they hurt excessively, it means it's necessary for you to respond to them. That's why they're called necessary. And response is you go back to the refuge. So that's beautiful. But they're unnecessary when they don't hurt, but they still occur to you. So now it's kind of like, it's not really there's no real imperative for you to respond to them, but maybe you're just feeling naughty, you're bored, I don't know, whatever else, you dwell on them, you try to say, yeah, I have this scruple. Maybe you want to talk to friends and you want to look like you have scruples. I don't know, whatever, my motivations might be, but I might come up with and dwell on scruples that don't really hurt. And I don't really have any idea, they're not taking me away from any certainty of belief or any refuge of mine. So that would be unnecessary for me to respond to them. They are still necessary in the larger sense because they test me whether I can say that, yes, you are necessary. Thank you. I recognize you, that you are a necessary one, and I'm going to ignore you. So they are necessary for my training and my testing, but they're unnecessary for me to respond by way of starting to generate in me, an artificial anxiety about, oh, this is a scruple, oh, it means what I thought was right is not actually right, just sort of this artificial. So I don't know, maybe I wasn't clear. I'm making sense to myself, but maybe I'm not making sense to others, but I joined late, so I apologize for my half-baked comments. Inshallah, next time.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. الفاتحة.